meeting of the Open Space and Recreation Committee to order. We have a light agenda tonight. Agenda item number one is mainly why we set a meeting for tonight, and that is to begin our discussion of open space that is currently unprotected but might merit protection. And prior to the meeting, I distributed two lists.
Yes, you did. Very good.
And one list is subdivision open space that was created by a subdivision where the subdivision has long since been completed and the open space is not currently, as far as I can tell, protected. So those are potential candidates for securing protection. In one case, the documentation I was able to find suggests that a conservation restriction exists, but it's never been recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So there, we can go through that list, and then just generally with respect to both lists, what I'd hope we can accomplish tonight is just to sort of kind of decide how we're going to move forward on this. We're not obviously not going to make any decisions tonight. Yes, we want this piece and not that piece or anything like that, but we want to kind of discuss where we're at with those and how we can move forward in thinking about them. So anyway, the subdivision open space, there are a number of other subdivisions that are still under development that are going to be permanently protecting their open space, but that's not going to happen until the subdivision has been completed. So those are all works in progress. Yes, they're not protected today, but we don't expect them to be.
What's the downside of not protecting them?
Well, that's something we want to, we can talk about. And just before we get back into that specific list, the other list, just as a way of starting off the discussion, the other list I compiled was, and this is basically all information that I put together when I was updating and developing the open space inventory that we included in what we know 3 years old, the open space and recreation plan that was completed and approved 3 years ago. Okay. Not in the not too distant future, we'll be thinking about the update for that, but that's discussion for another time. But anyway, I'm wandering a little bit. So in the process of putting that all together, I found a number of parcels of town-owned land that are not currently under any kind of protection, either under Conservation Commission control or the subject of a conservation or other kind of restriction. And the question that what we can think about is which, if any of those, should be permanently protected as open space. And there you have to think about, well, is this a sufficiently valuable as open space? We want to make sure nothing else gets done with it. Mm-hmm. Is it even big enough to even worry about? There's some that are some pieces scattered around that are just a fraction of an acre. They're just kind of sitting out there all by themselves. Probably not worth the effort to try to place them under any kind of protection, but there's 40 some of those parcels that we want to look over and think about again. If there is anything on either one of these lists that we do think potentially deserves protection, particularly with the parcels that are already owned by the town, right, we're going to want to sort of circulate any candidates amongst other town departments, because there may be some other non-open space value to some of those. A reason why the town, at the time they acquired the parcel, did not place them under control of the Conservation Commission or otherwise protect them. And just as an example, I'm thinking of the two rather large parcels off of 27 Milford Road.
Yes, I'm quite familiar with those.
Yes, and those at one time were sort of set aside as potential town facilities. We looked at those parcels when we were trying to figure out where to put the new high school. And for reasons that I don't remember because I wasn't on that committee, they decided not to. Part of it, I think, was ledge and hills there. But
Yeah, there's a lot of ledge out there in the distance from the center of town. It's at the other end of town.
yeah, but anyway, I think we had sort of set those aside as maybe some future municipal use other than recreation or conservation.
Conservation, yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that, you know, if we look at, as we're looking at the parcels now, we may see value as open space or recreation. There may be other reasons to not place them under conservation or other protection. But that kind of depends, you know, we start out by looking at those things and we'll see, you know, that this looks like it might be worth protecting, that one doesn't. So anything that we think might be worth protecting will probably end up following up on those with other town departments to get a better read on whether there are good reasons not to make them permanently protected open space.
I had a rec department meeting and Adam has put together a master plan, 5-year master plan as to what he needs for recreation. And one of those is a demand on fields. We are beating the heck out of our fields right now. They're overused. We can't get away from that because we have no other option. So we just are forced to overuse. And it's a vicious cycle that just keeps happening. And there are also, for example, in Riverview, there's a well there, but it's not deep enough. We need to make that, change that so it is deep enough and we can pump and irrigate. But we're not irrigating, so we can't take care of and maintain the fields. So there's a lot of what Adam's put together is very not detailed as far as what is needed, but it's really a plan at this point.
Yeah.
And he would benefit from knowing what's available.
Yeah, so that's a good topic. One of the things I was expecting that we would you know, sort of pursue that angle is, you know, I remember I was, you know, part of the committee or the group of people that were reviewing that rec strategic plan, and that's a particular point I remember, that we're overtaxing some of the fields. And that plan, as I recall, that was largely focused on our existing recreation facilities. And I think even at some point during the discussion of that, there was some mention made of, you know, beyond that, we need to be looking at additional facilities.
And this, your first list of properties is I like the detail that's contained in there. And I was as I went through with it today, I'm thinking, oh, that would be a great place to have an entire athletic facility. And it's got enough space. A high school size soccer field takes 2 acres. So you need something with more than 2 acres. And if you're talking about an athletic field, athletic facility, you have maybe 2 or 3 size, not specifically soccer fields, but the equivalent of 2 or 3 size soccer fields in space. So you need at least 6 to 10 acres to do that effectively. This is just my thinking out loud.
I mean, and it strikes me that one of the specific things we can do with these lists of properties is to identify places that potentially we could use, particularly if the town already owns it, which the big list is all the town already owns it. You know, the smaller list, the shorter list is just, you know, is things that, yeah, and on the shorter list, the one of the subdivision open space list, there is one item on that list, the Art Lot Acres tot lot.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
That little thing. It was intended, and in the permits for that, it where very clearly states that was intended to be a playground for little kids. And the developer was supposed to install playground equipment there, and it never happened. Now, that's not the kind of recreation fields that you're looking at. That's
Right.
not where you would
Well-
put like a soccer field or any kind of
No,
ball field.
it wouldn't, but it actually addresses some of what Adam is looking for, is having child-friendly spaces
Mhm.
across the town. So there are multiple play areas that are local to the residents. So we already have North Grafton, we have South Grafton, and we have Central. There should be more in those areas.
Yep. Yeah, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, one of the desires that people expressed as we were, gathering information for the comprehensive master plan was for more, and in fact, this goes back to the open space and rec plan. I think there's a lot of interest in, how about some neighborhood parks, neighborhood playgrounds.
When we're looking at properties that the subdivisions. The town owns that subdivision space. Put a park in there. Wouldn't it be nice, instead of having every house have a separate playground in the backyard? It's a shared playground. Everybody's the central place to meet.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that was kind of the idea between the Art Lot Acre, behind the Art Lot Acres tot lot is. And there's something, and I don't think that we've really leveraged this, and I'd have to go back and look it up. But I think a part of our subdivision rules and regulations suggests that we ought to, in every subdivision, we ought to be having the developer reserve some space for something like a neighborhood park or playground.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever, other than that Art Lot Acres, which that goes back to the mid-80s when that was planned. But other than that, I don't recall in the time I've been on the planning board, the subdivisions we've approved over the last 15 years or so. We haven't really focused on active recreation areas, parks and playgrounds. We're big on setting aside open space, but it's mostly just for conservation trails, maybe. But not so much neighborhood parks or playgrounds. And of course, the issue with playgrounds is, particularly parks and playgrounds, is we got to spend money to keep it up.
Yeah.
To maintain it.
Maintenance.
And that's occasionally that's an argument I've heard why, well, we have trouble keeping up with the maintenance on what we already have.
I'll let the kids go play in the woods.
Yeah. When I was a kid.
Well, that's what I did.
When I was a kid, we played in the woods.
We had one big park, two big parks in town, and the rest we just played in the woods otherwise.
Of course, we had where I lived when I was little, we had a forest just, it was more than 2 or 3 blocks away from our house.
Yeah.
It
Right
was easy
across the
for us
street.
kids to walk,
Acres and acres
just to
of
go
land.
into the forest and play.
Yeah.
That doesn't describe things so much around here, though.
No, it doesn't.
But anyway. Yeah.
So how do you want to go through those town-owned ones to see which ones we should advocate for open space or not? Do we go through them individually, or do you want to take it home?
I would probably, and this is logistically, how do we go through it? We could all go through it individually, and we spend a lot of time collating all the information together that each one of us walks away with or comes back with. Or how can we display in a meeting like this, that open space, and share our knowledge of those particular facilities to get it all done in real time in a meeting?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe sort of. Yes. That is, I'm thinking, since I just distributed this list a couple days ago, so none of us had a lot of time.
I have.
Granted that I
Oh, you
developed
know,
this,
because
so
you've been through it.
I know more about it, but on the other hand, I haven't looked, particularly, I haven't looked at the list of town-owned parcels with an eye towards which ones do I think would be useful for what purpose.
Yeah.
So I kind of know what they are, and I know a little bit about this, about, like the two at the top of the list, for example, 21 Follette Street and 53 Millbury Street. 53 Millbury Street is basically
I like that property.
set aside for future cemetery expansion and the brush dump.
Yeah.
And the brush dump is there now, the rest of it has been, long understood to be for future expansion of the cemetery. So that's probably already spoken for. 21 Follette Street, I mean, there's some, there could be some argument made towards, well, do we really need that space for a cemetery?
And how long in the future is that, is like 100
When-
years is
right,
space
when-
available?
And I don't remember off the top of my head, I think it was something like 1960, when town meeting voted to reserve that for cemetery expansion, and the cemetery has not yet expanded into that, so that's.
No, and there's plenty of room at the cemetery as it is right now.
Yeah, so that's sort of up, potentially up for reconsideration. The Affordable Housing Trust had their eye on that and got a lot of pushback from the cemetery people, but anyway, so that's. That was second from the top of the list in terms of, and the list. If you hadn't noticed, I didn't say so explicitly, but the list was ordered in terms of the priority that our prioritization project established. So the top priority out of the prioritization project was the top of the list. 21 Follette Street was at the very top of the list. That has the problem that, or the potential problem in terms of thinking of it as open space, that the water district
Correct.
has a well on there and a solar farm on there.
A question on the Follette Street. Follette Street is the park. How many more acres are there that aren't taken up by the existing park, baseball field, tennis courts?
You might be thinking of Ferry Street for the.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And
Although Follette Street has a monument in front of the entrance saying Dauphiné Memorial Park.
Oh.
Way back when.
Yep.
We were thinking of developing that as a park. In fact, we had some like architecture students or some students of a planning school or something drew up a concept plan for turning that into a park.
Mm.
And then the water department, the water district found a good location for a well there, so that's taken up some of the space. They put a solar array next to the well to provide a lot of power to run the well. And there's a fair amount of land left over.
land.
Looks like it abuts the Blackstone. Is that
It does.
Blackstone?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wouldn't.
And in fact, it doesn't have much of any potential for development in any other way. A few months ago, the planning board was reviewing a cell tower that was gonna go near the top of Lazy Hill. And some of the residents in the Lazy Hill area said, why don't they put that cell tower at 21 Follette Street? And we looked at that, the cell company looked at that, and they had some problems with it being much lower in elevation, requiring a higher tower. Plus, it turns out that with all the constraints on any kind of development of that property between the presence of wetlands, the riverfront protection zone, the flood hazard zone. It turns out that there really was no place left on that parcel of land where you could drop a cell tower without the cell tower being in the flood zone. You probably wouldn't want your facilities at the base of the cell tower to be at risk of flooding. So we looked at that extensively because the town at one time was offering that site up to the cell companies for a tower and nobody took us up on it. But anyway, my only question about, and I think there's probably a way to resolve it, about putting it under permanent protection, making it, putting it under control of the Conservation Commission as Article 97 land is, how does the existence of the solar farm for the water company affect that? Maybe it may not, but if we wanted to sort of officially place that entire parcel under permanent protection, that's a question, and the resolution might well be a conservation restriction covering the undeveloped portion of the parcel.
Yeah, right.
Dave, can I ask you a question? What is the process of like how, say we went through these and we found some good candidates? What is the process for making that into open space? Like, what's the level of effort and like who need?
Yeah.
What would need to happen?
Well, there's basically a couple of different things that can happen. The simplest procedure is, since the town already owns the land, a town meeting vote to place it under control of the Conservation Commission would achieve the permanent protection that we would be looking for.
Okay.
So for most parcels of town-owned land, that's the simplest thing, and we, quite a number of the parcels that we do have permanently protected were protected exactly that way. Sometimes when the town votes to acquire the land, that vote acquires it and places it under control of the Conservation Commission.
At the same time, yeah.
But we don't know, we'd have to go back through records to determine if any of these were.
Well, not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but it's appropriate to be aware of this. That for any of these parcels that we believe to be unprotected and we believe should be protected, one of the things that we'll have to do is sort of confirm, probably, and this is probably something that town council would be engaged in, to verify from all the available records that the land is what we think it is. I mean, all of this information I got basically by, digging up deeds and town meeting votes, most of which are recorded in the registry of deeds. Some town meeting votes didn't get recorded, and they probably should be, just so that the registry of deeds has a complete record of the status of the land. But for every one of these, as much as I think I got all the information correct, we would want to work, I would want this to go through town council for a reliable legal determination of the current status and what would need to be done. Like I said,
Do we have budget, like, is there a budget somewhere for attorney's fees for the town council to do that, or?
I do not know if this would need to be, we have town council we pay town council.
Right.
Every year we pay them to do a whole bunch of stuff, and whether something like this would fall within the scope of what they're already being paid to do, or we would have to pay extra, that's something that at some point, if, as we go through this, we get to that point of wanting to kind of get things all done legally. We'd have to work that out with the town administrator's office, I think. We might want to kind of have the planning department coordinate and organize this on our behalf once we get to a point where we've got something that we want to move forward with. And my first thought is to touch base with Fiona and see the extent to which the planning department is, and I suspect with limited resources, the planning department's basically working flat out, not even fully keeping up with the workload they have. Although, but I would touch base with Fiona and sort of work with Fiona or through Fiona to pursue this once we're at a point when we want to get serious. Right now, it's sort of, we're looking at it, and somewhere along the line, I was starting to say, as kind of a first step, each one of us can look at these lists and pick out, parcels of land that we think are worth further consideration. And then we probably get together and go over, sort of get a consensus list from the committee And then at that point, we can start to work through the planning department and other town staff as necessary to follow up on some of these things. Going back to the topic of subdivision open space. No, the town's probably gonna have to reach out to the current owners of the property and ask them, well, this was supposed to be given to the town as open space. How come you want to actually do that? Please do.
Yeah.
Or if it's something that we really don't see any value in, we just leave it as is. But
Right, right.
anything that we think ought to be owned or controlled by the town, there's an existing property owner that they're paying taxes on that land. And as much or as little as the tax may be, but they still own the land.
That's the incentive right there.
Yeah. To me, it seems like
Why would? we
that's kind
push
of
that?
like secondary priority to getting some of those larger ones like Milford Street. I just hiked that the other day. I had no idea that it wasn't open space.
There are. I've lived there for 24 years and been hiking it for 24 years. And it should be under conservation because there are marked trails,
Yeah,
the land trust.
Which one is that?
It's off of Milford Road.
It's on the subdivision list?
no, it's on the town owned.
Yeah,
It's
Oh, that's down by Hosmonesset.
yes,
Milford ones.
yeah, you can get there from Hassamas. That trail.
Yeah, that whole area.
But
should be
you
protected.
have power lines, you have gas lines, you have water lines, all running through those,
Mhm.
but
Well, and it's zoned residential. I just looked at
Really?
the GIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's zoned, so that's,
yes, there's a whole nother story that back in around 1986, we did a major rezoning. And that land off of Milford Road was zoned industrial. I wasn't involved in the discussions leading up to it, but it's my impression that the idea was, well, it's off in one corner of town. Perfectly good place for industrial. It's not gonna,
yeah,
affect anybody's homes. And then a big developer came in and said,
Pulte built 230
Yeah, Pulte-
condos.
Pulte built the condos.
and 200 homes.
And
I live in one of those homes.
Yeah, back when that first, an outfit called Maycomer was the one that initially acquired the property
Yeah.
and got it rezoned to residential. And then I think they handed off the actual development to Pulte.
Yeah.
On the topic of Milford, there is some additional land up against that water. I don't know what that is. It's
Yeah, the railroads.
south of Silver Lake, but Upton was gonna purchase some land.
Yes,
To protect it along whatever that water body is, and then
Yeah.
I think there's a parcel or two that Concom suggested
Oh.
purchasing.
yeah, that's.
So then
On both sides of the West River.
West River, that's it.
Yeah, and yeah, Upton had a couple of parcels and Upton
So
reached out to.
protecting that would just like make that whole
Yeah.
chunk all the way up to the West River, protected open.
No,
space.
it's,
Yeah, yeah, well,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
There's my 2 cents from the Concom.
my recollection from all those discussions is that Grafton was going to continue to work with Upton to coordinate the acquisition of that land.
Yeah,
So that will pop up on our maps at some point. But
any of that land.
the
is,
land trust owns like a little, like a 1 or 2 acre parcel in the middle of all that.
I think so.
Huh. Anyway,
And I think I'm getting a sense from some of this discussion that looking at the unprotected subdivision open space is sort of,
Secondary.
that would not be our first priority. That would be like our second priority. It's been sitting there open all these years. And it's,
it's not like someone can come and develop it or something. It's,
right.
it's already a part of a subdivision. And yeah, I'm more concerned about these big parcels that they're coded orange on on our priorities and they're not protected.
Yeah.
Or orange or red.
Orange or red, yeah.
Milford Road, the two Milford Road properties are enormous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like, that's,
But
it's like,
it's conservation. I'm gonna say it's landlocked. It's locked by homes. And there's it's locked by homes and home roads.
yeah,
The only way get there is to go through a development.
yeah, those, those two Milford Road parcels, if it can be agreed by all parties interested, that all parties involved, it can be agreed that the town doesn't really have any use for those other than conservation/recreation, then why not protect them?
Yeah, exactly.
And assuming that I haven't missed anything, a simple town meeting vote is all it takes to place them under control of the Conservation Commission. That would be it.
This is just an idea, but what if we just started with those two? Cause they're the biggest and we know them and, they're clearly important. What if we just like started with those two and asked and just got the process going with those and saw like,
It would be a good experience. I think Shannon.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
If
and
we can't get
again,
those protected, we probably can't get
Yeah, anything else, right?
Yeah.
yeah, I think the as far as I can tell, my sense is the only question about that comes up as to whether those should be protected is, do we see those parcels at some point in the future being necessary for a school or some other town facility? And part of the answer to that is, how developable is that land,
How do
really?
you get there? Yes, it's, how would you
I mean, you
access it?
well, it could be an extension off of like that cul-de-sac dead ends. At.
Yeah.
That,
I mean-
in the middle of that parcel, they could just extend the cul-de-sac.
they could, extending the cul-de-sac is problematic.
It is, it's a cul-de-sac, a circle of homes, and you're putting up
Yeah.
a major road to develop
Yeah.
land in the back.
Not to get off, again, too far off topic, but a couple of years ago on the planning board, we were looking at the subdivision regulations, and one of the things the subdivision regulations say is, if you have a cul-de-sac and you've got an adjacent piece of property, you have to leave room for a road to extend from that cul-de-sac. But when you do that, the frontage requirements for the houses on the cul-de-sac are much reduced, so you now have a problem of reconfiguring people's house lots.
Yeah.
So they still have-
And the homes.
Frontage, so if the,
I'm just thinking of
Right.
Pratt Street.
if the cul-de-sac was created with that hypothetical extension already there, then at least you didn't put any houses right in the extension.
They did that with Pratt Street, and it is a straight line out to the power lines. And it's all they're hydrants along that dugout area. Not dugout area, it's cut down area, so you could walk down that path, and the hydrants on the sides. So I think they intended on extending that. And so they put the hydrants there, but the hydrants may have come from Hassamasset. And the water is flowing from Hassamasset over to the development. So I don't know what path it's
Yeah.
taking, but
So anyway, just looking at the Milford Road property has access from Milford Road at one point. So there's enough space for one road to go in there from Milford Road to get to all that acreage and back, but there's really, other than potentially extending a subdivision road,
Right.
there's really no other access to it. So I
Well,
think,
like at the end of that cul-de-sac, Pratt Street, there's an empty lot at the end of the cul-de-sac with like a green. Dashed corridor, I can't tell what that is, but
gas line.
it's a gas line, okay. there's an empty lot between two houses that maybe they left it empty for a
Yeah,
reason
for that
to.
reason.
I don't know, I'm just saying, what if we started with that and like,
I think that's that. Those two parcels on Milford Road are just sort of. And kind of an obvious candidate
mm,
for becoming protected conservation land.
That's the way I look at it. And it is my neighborhood.
I'm also wondering why in your PDF of. The data table, it has a site name of Oakmont Farms Open Space. Why would it,
That's Oakmont Farms.
Yeah, Oakmont Farms is the name of the subdivision.
why would it be already called open space if no one ever wanted it to be open space?
Yeah, good question.
I think that's probably the way it was labeled on the subdivision plan as open space.
Okay.
But I mean, the term open space doesn't necessarily imply protected open space.
Okay,
And in fact, fairly consistently,
They left it open to whatever
I think
purpose it has.
in some of the data that I have, and I don't know that it shows up here anywhere, but I think I have in my open space inventory catalog, I've got the use of the space labeled as conservation or recreation or open space, among others.
Excuse me.
Conservation is protected, recreation is protected. Open space is open but not protected. So I think that's probably where the term came from. And I'm just looking at. Yeah, I can't tell. There is an easement marked on the town GIS at the end of Pratt Street, but I can't tell if it's
Yeah,
intended as a
really-
road easement or a utility easement.
It's, yeah, I'm not sure.
I'd
That's
have-
where the hydrants are that I spoke about.
I could look, I don't have it on my computer here, but I can look at the actual subdivision plan and then see whether that was intended to be a roadway access to the backland.
Yeah.
But in any case,
it's listed on the Land Trust website. Is that what you said before? You said it's Land Trust? Anyways.
Oh, there are a couple chunks of land in the
Yeah,
middle.
I had mentioned Land Trust has walked those paths and has marked them
Okay,
distance wise and named the trails.
Yeah, it looks like they own two chunks of land out there,
Very smart to buy something right in the middle.
landlocked.
But what can anybody do around it?
Yeah, sure they got a good deal.
yeah. Yeah, it doesn't show up on the maps I distributed.
And that is, there's a
Yes,
lot.
there are a couple of. There's the Hassan-Messett land, there's the Milford Road land, which we're talking about, and right around that, there are a number of land trust parcels as well.
There's a lot of wet areas. There's in that that Milford property, there are a lot of wet areas. So it's that flood in the spring.
And there's a lot of what
Conservation.
hear and remember about that land does seem to suggest that there's not much that the town can really do with it.
Yeah.
So I think I'll take that as an action from this meeting, is that we
Yeah.
will,
Secure those two properties.
I'll begin by, discussing with Fiona this effort that we're just starting and I'll suggest that, okay, we'll work out how we want to get this filtered through the various town staff to evaluate these two parcels.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm thinking of thinking aloud about the effort, conservation, nobody's gonna argue about conservation, I wouldn't think. But if you want to turn something into a play area, or you want to turn it into active recreation such as athletic fields, you might have the abutting properties have issues with that.
Yeah.
Because they like seeing the trees in the backyard.
Right behind your house, we're gonna put a big pickleball complex, outdoor pickleball complex. That's always popular, isn't it?
I'm thinking of I identified the 6 Upton Street, there are 10 acres back there. Coincidentally, you can fit 2, 3 large soccer fields there. Or
Yep.
an
Is that
athletic
super
park.
We were going to put a
That's
super park there at
yeah,
one
super
point.
park. I have that. We were, I was part of that.
Yeah, so that's, I
That's
mean,
why I bring up the abutting property owners.
Yes.
Do they really want
yes, I-
that? Yeah,
Yes,
South
I-
Street residents,
just,
buy in?
just recently, we had in the apartment project at the old highway barn on Upton Street,
Yeah.
across from
Oh,
the
yeah,
fire
yeah,
station.
right.
At one point, they were proposing to put a pickleball court. And then the people who lived just that, well, a number of the people who lived around there, you know, objected to the pickleball. And, you know, pickleball has been in the news a lot lately,
It
all the
is.
noise and.
it's noisy. I've got a lot to say about pickleball, but I'll save that.
Yeah, you on the recreation
Yes,
commission
we-
probably
we-
heard a lot more about pickleball than I did.
We've had experience with pickleball.
Yeah, so we've got to start here. We've got,
Yeah, that's good.
you know, 2 parcels that we can all easily agree are worth turning into conservation land.
We had, from the minutes, there was a note about when, a GSI data be uploaded to the website. The owner would do that, I'm assuming?
It
Yeah.
is now, it looks like.
It is, okay, great.
It wasn't at the time of that.
All right, good. I just had a note from the
Yeah,
minutes.
I just saw it when I was flipping through the planning board website earlier.
Now, one of the things that Fiona had been pursuing was including the parcel prioritization data on the town's GIS. And as far as I know, I'm just looking at it now, I don't see that it's there yet. But
Oh.
Fiona had mentioned to me at one point, she was talking to the GIS guy at this company that runs our GIS. They were discussing what can be done, but
Yeah.
probably nothing's happened yet.
Was it?
There's a whole page for it. There's a whole page on the planning. It's not the GIS data on the GIS
Right, but
website.
that's the parcel prioritization.
Yeah, but
page.
there's a whole webpage for the parcel
Yeah,
prioritization.
so we've got that, we've got it visible on the website.
Yeah,
And there was a long, a discussion in the minutes about to do it or not do it. And just for transparency, you don't want to do that, let people know
Yeah,
that this is what are possibilities for those properties.
so, and we can, you know, we'll pursue the Milford Road parcels. I'll reach out to Fiona and figure out how best to get that going.
Yeah.
And that one doesn't strike me as being particularly complex. And the only sticking point might be, well, we really think we might use some of that land for something else.
should we I guess I was gonna, before the next meeting, I was going to look at the other ones. And maybe pick out a couple of other ones for next.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
I
that's-
was
that's
just
what you should do.
kind of getting, heading in that direction. We've got something that it's pretty obvious to all of us that it's worth considering making that protected open space. And we can all, you know, encourage everybody to continue to look through,
Yeah, we'll do that list that you provided.
Yeah. look through
And,
this and we
See
can,
what we can.
yeah, we can pick out some additional parcels that maybe we kind of think, and particularly, Stephen, you from a recreational
Well,
point of view,
Yeah,
you know, and maybe you work with the commission with Adam and,
I'm gonna talk to Adam about this because I'll look at it from the NI of recreation and athletic facilities. And
Yeah.
minimum 10 acres.
because
You
ultimately.
can build one field, but
Yeah, any
That may
land,
help.
yeah, and any land that we dedicate for recreation purposes. Protected in the same way, permanently protected in the same way that conservation land is. Right.
So 10 acres,
10 acres would
10 flat acres.
10 flat acres. And that doesn't include parking, so it'll grow, but
Yeah,
you get two large athletic fields on 4 acres. Then you add an acre for parking, and then more than an acre of parking, that's not a lot of parking.
yeah. And then you also mentioned the idea of like neighborhood parks or playgrounds, which is much, smaller in size, but more scattered around where the
Right.
people are, where people live.
Yeah, you can be nice if you walk to them, that you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about parking. But that's a hard thing too, because
That's a hard, that's a,
we
because the
don't
way
always
most,
have sidewalks.
right. Yeah, our subdivisions, we,
But within the subdivisions, you can easily. walk.
right, we insist that you put sidewalks in a subdivision. It's just that subdivisions are, half acre or 1 acre lots, so the houses are relatively far apart from one another, so you don't have like a cluster of several dozen houses that are all, a 5-minute walk from a location where you put a playground. It's,
Yeah, they don't build those neighborhoods anymore, do they? We're in a. Our property is half an acre. Yeah, I think our whole property is a half an acre, and we have, I live in a cul-de-sac, there are 8 homes around the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So a neighborhood park would be fantastic, then we all didn't have to spend all this money on play sets.
Yep.
And then you socialize
Oh, heavens.
and walk your dogs, yeah, my goodness.
Yeah, that,
To talk to people?
Yeah, like,
Oh, my
I wouldn't want
goodness.
that. I want kids associated with those people.
yeah, looking ahead to future housing development.
It's too bad we haven't learned our lessons about building.
Well, the master plan is hopefully going to be charting out a direction that's more compatible with, people living closer together and socializing more.
And socializing,
And at the same time,
have local community parks.
at the same time preserving more open space. So instead of filling up the open space with 1 acre, 2 acre lots, houses are scattered far apart.
And costing $1 million or more.
We'd like to have the town chart a slightly different direction of development. Easier said than done, of course.
It certainly is.
A lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Low density isolationist.
Yeah.
Style of living. But be that as it may, it sounds like we've got ourselves a pretty good direction to move forward here. We'll schedule another meeting in a month or two. The end of the year, November and December tend to be difficult months for meeting, but
Yeah, would the week before, would it be the week before Thanksgiving would be our next one?
let's see. What does the calendar say? Yeah, the third Wednesday, which has been our usual meeting date, third Wednesday is the week before Thanksgiving.
That seems pretty reasonable.
So that should be doable.
Yeah, before the holiday.
And the third Wednesday of December, if we choose to have a meeting in December, is the week before Christmas. So at some point, we're going to leave ourselves with basically nothing much to do other than watch how everybody else is implementing their part of the open space and rec plan. It's just reviewing the action items that we've assigned ourselves. And what we've started now is really the only one we have left.
Yeah, I think Adam was, at the last meeting, Adam was talking about his list, and he's working through those, he's updating them.
And I mean,
So when you send out your request for updates, he's going to be able to satisfy that request.
that would be good. And Yeah, we're not, I suppose we're not gonna totally run out of things to do as a committee, but I mean. The primary purpose of this committee was to monitor and oversee the implementation of the open space and rec plan. What we've, you know, we've assigned almost all the action items to other committees. So,
There's still a lot more property out there.
Yeah.
We can look at.
you know, and we, you know, it may take us a few months to kind of work through our list and, you know, and before we feel like we've done everything we can. And I was gonna mention too, the way the action item was worded, it was to review tax title properties.
Yes, we have that, one of the items.
And when you look at the list of town-owned properties, you can see that a number of them are tax title properties. Tax title properties that is, the town got them through the tax title process. Potential future tax title properties is a whole nother question.
We talked about that.
We said, yeah,
When the town wants to collect on that, don't they have to sell the property to collect the,
Oh, yeah, we were
Taxes.
talking about
we
something.
talked about that. and
yeah,
then the land will revert to,
yeah, so up until this summer. When the state legislature. Passed the equity theft laws.
that's right,
Right.
that's right.
Prior to that. The town would simply. Seize the land, foreclose on it, and then the town owns it. And that was it, which for empty land, that's. Not probably very harmful to anybody. But if the town seized your house for non-payment of taxes and then just kept the whole thing. You're out of luck. So what the legislature did. Was they changed the law so that. When the town takes your property for unpaid taxes. The town can choose to retain the property. Or turn around and sell it. And there's a prescribed procedure for, you know, they basically, the town has to work a little bit harder to sell it. And then the proceeds from the sale, the town gets to keep. Whatever covered the back taxes.
Yeah.
And then the town gives you the remaining, the equity that you had in the
That's the
property.
fair way to do it.
If the town chooses to hold on to the property. The town still has to give you the equity.
Yeah.
Which means, if in effect, the town is buying the property. For its value minus the amount of taxes owed. So now, for the town to keep money. Keep a tax title property, it's gonna actually cost the town some money. So the town's probably not gonna be doing that as much.
No, it's not.
And of course, the other bit about. If the town can't find anybody to whom the equity is owed. As we can't track down the owner, we don't know who the owner is, we can't find out who the owner is, then the. Excess equity is turned over to the state
The
as
state,
unclaimed
the state
property.
did his unclaimed property. Yes, exactly. The state has the hands in everything.
So what that means is.
No, it just sits
The
on-
town-
yeah.
The town is probably not going to be. Acquiring and keeping any more tax title property. So future tax title property. I don't know if all the wrinkles of that have been totally worked out since it's a new law. It just signed into law at the end of July, so there's still probably some details about that no one is really sure how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
It's probably fair to assume. That for all the tax title property we've gotten in the past, we may not be getting any more. Although. If. A property comes up which. Is gonna be seized, foreclosed on for back taxes. If that property is sufficiently valuable to the town. The town could choose to keep it and pay whatever it would cost. That puts it. Sort of. In a situation similar to the chapter 61s. Where we have the first right. To acquire it. If we think it's worthwhile, then yeah, we'll spend the money to acquire it. Tax title, tax title may become more like chapter 61 in the sense of the town deciding whether it's worth it to spend the money on it. But as far going back to the open space and rec plan, the action items there, the action item that talks about tax title property, there's probably not much that we can usefully do in thinking about property that the town may acquire in the future through the tax title process. But we have a whole bunch of tax title properties already in our inventory that, and that's basically what we've been talking about, whether we got it by deed or tax title.
Mhm.
We have all these open space parcels. And which ones do we think should be conservation or recreation land? And I'm not sure that when we wrote that open space and rec plan, I'm not sure what the thinking was that went into that particular action item that talked about tax title properties. Someone suggested it, and so, without much thinking about it, that sounds like a good idea. So, where we're at now is interpreting that action item in a way that makes sense to us.
Dave, what does it mean if, sorry, I was just looking at one of these properties, 81 East Street rear, which is adjacent to the new Institute Road. It says recreation 15-year, municipal 30-year restriction. Does that sound familiar? It's attached to the Concom land behind North Grafton Elementary. What's a 15 and 30-year?
If that's what I'm thinking of, what I think I'm remembering was when we acquired that land. I think that was part of the Weber property
Yeah.
that we acquired. And on a portion of that land, we had a 15-year, for the first 15 years that we owned it, there was something that we could or couldn't do, and I don't remember all the specifics. I remember seeing that somewhere.
Oh, okay. That one kind of seems like another no-brainer one to me, but
Sounds like it has a conservation restriction already.
Yeah. Yeah, part of the Weber land was immediately placed under conservation. The
yeah,
other
the
part
big
was,
one.
the other part was. We thought we'd reserve it, we thought it might be useful for some other municipal purpose, like some sort of municipal building. So and I don't remember that much of the discussion that went into that. But I remember seeing some of the results there that was.
Anyway, yeah,
It was-
I
right, we
was
did-
just making
right.
notes on the,
Yeah, we deliberately chose not to put all of that under conservation.
okay.
Now, the reason for that, those reasons may no longer exist. Like the reasons for not putting the Milford Road parcels
Right.
under conservation. You know, what we were thinking at the time may no longer be significant. But yeah, that is another one that we might want to think about or suggest reevaluating the current status as unprotected.
I think a lot of this, just as an analogy, it's the rainy day. But
Yeah.
I don't want to put it restricted up to, it might need it on a rainy day. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
You know,
what are you gonna do with it?
we might someday need land for another school building.
Yeah, so why restrict it now?
Going back to the new high school. The Milford Road property is one place we looked at. The Hennessy property where the new DPW building now
Mhm.
is occupies a part of that, but
Oh,
the
that's right, I remember that.
greater part of it is still open. We looked at putting the high school there. The problem I remember with that was there's like a stream, we're cutting it right in the middle, so part of the high school would have been on one side of the stream, part on the other. It was parking lots and fields on one side of the building, or there's something like that. And they thought that was, and some people thought that was too far away from the center of town too. But
Yeah, it's too far away from San Antonio.
on the other hand, you can't put everything in the center of town. You know, we have schools scattered around. But anyway, yeah, that was another parcel, yeah, again, that Hennessy two land acquisition, we deliberately chose not to place that under conservation. Thinking that we might have a future use for it,
Yeah.
and indeed, the DPW ended up there, I guess. That's the kind of thing that, a reason why the town may acquire land without making a conservation land.
Can you, like, you can put property in conservation, you can also take it out.
You can take it out, but it's very difficult.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's Article 97 of the state constitution, basically says that once you've placed land into conservation for conservation or recreation purposes, and there's a few other closely related purposes. Basically, in order to take it out, it requires an act of the legislature. The town can't.
Really?
Yes, 2/3 of each house of the legislature has to approve that. And then, if you take it out of conservation, they want you to put an equivalent amount of land into conservation. So no net loss of conservation land is the idea.
Okay, so that is the negative about putting anything in conservation.
That's why you don't want to put it in conservation unless you're quite sure.
Yeah.
You'll never want to do anything else with it.
Well,
That's why Article 97 is a big deal.
Yeah, let's see how far we get with Milford Road properties.
Yeah, so, going back to what I was speculating earlier about the Milford Road property, if property, the topography and the ledge and everything else, if we look at that and say we just don't see how we could put a building on there, then, hey, it's undevelopable. Why not make it conservation land? Because we like to have conservation. We like to have it and preserve open space.
And the state would love to have that on the list of conservation
Sure.
in Grafton.
Yeah, we have something like 16% of the land area in Grafton right now is permanently protected as conservation or open space or agricultural. Some towns can claim like 60 or 70%, but like most of their land is a state forest or something.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So we can't exactly compare ourselves to that, but.
Oh, the Upton State Forest is Upton wins there.
Right, 1 out of every 6 acres of land in Grafton is permanently protected conservation land. And
Speaks highly.
to the extent that we value our open space, adding to that helps people feel like we're preserving a part of a characteristic of Grafton that we like.
All right.
Good.
What else we got?
We've got some marching orders here.
Yes, we do, and we have minutes to approve.
Yes, so that
Do we have that? Do we have enough? What do we need for as a quantity?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. We have a quorum of the committee present.
Okay.
I think I had Trevor was on Zoom for a while and I've not been paying attention to Zoom. But no one else is on Zoom right now. Zoom is recording our meeting, however.
Yeah.
So I think we probably exhausted the topic of.
Yes, we have.
Future open space.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 17th, 2024, March 20th, 2024, and September 18th, 2024.
Second.
Moving a second, and the minutes be approved as drafted. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, since we're all in the room, I can just take a show of hands. All in favor, say aye. Okay. Opposed? Declared motion carried unanimously. And the motion to adjourn would now be in order.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Moving a second that this meeting be adjourned. All in favor? Aye.
All right.